This is my creative technology master's project based on gentrification. I present to you, Take Me Back to Haggie Estate. The project started off with research into Haggerston Estate and the development the area underwent, such as how the community changed and their opinions about the area they live. Then research into model making and why it would make this project more interesting. This was the initial idea for the project, which explored showing the new and old area through projection mapping on a model and moving parts. To start off, recordings were made from a roof to capture the essence of the area. This rough mock-up explores the before and after of the area. We now begin validating the concept through Arduino, where we used a servo motor with a switch, which would be used to change the projections from old to new. This was then used on P5.js through serial communication to control the state of the servo and show a video based on the state. This was the basic concept proved, as this could essentially be projected onto a model and can be changed by pressing the switch. Projection mapping was then explored in low fidelity to generate ideas and see what kind of effects could be achieved. So we know the tech would work. Now it's time to design the area as a small-scale model. The model was painted white so that it can reflect projections better. A rack and pinion was then designed for the servos, which would serve as a track to lower and raise the buildings in the model. The idea was to make two buildings move, so one servo was utilized to move two tracks, which went through phases of development. As seen, there were problems with tolerances and the gears weren't meshing. And then an epic fail occurred as the new gear combination made the tracks travel in the same direction. So we went back to pen and paper to figure how to move one part slower than the other in opposite directions. The answer was a compound gear. This new development shows that the compound gear had to have a gear ratio of 8:5. This is the mechanism in action, but there were some problems due to friction of the parts and low torque in the servo. Now it's time to make the graphics for the projections. Graphics were designed on Photoshop and were then mapped in the software directly as a test. This was the first test used on P5.js. As you can see, the projection had issues in mapping correctly, as after all, it was mapped in Photoshop, which is not a projection mapping software. Occasional jams were still happening. It was clear that we had to use projection mapping software. So we did a test on some paper models using a trial version of MadMapper. This was a lot more effective in comparison to using Photoshop and P5.js. The full version of MadMapper was bought and tested immediately. So far, so good. Essentially, we had to repeat the process of connecting Arduino to the projections. However, this time, we used processing as opposed to P5.js. And after some tinkering in the code, it worked. The problem with P5.js is it's not possible to use two projectors, which makes sense as it's not a projection mapping software, which was another reason to change. So another projector was used, which was adjusted with the other projector so that the projections match. This was the final result of the project. The idea was being able to view the community in the early 2000s and in the 2040s, which by then, it is predicted that solar panels and roof gardens will be more common due to global warming. The sounds of the era is also included to make it more personal to the local communities. This has been the project Take Me Back to Haggie Estate. Thank you for watching.